Welcome to today's video, where we dive into one of the most shocking and controversial criminal cases of modern times, the story of the Rothenburg cannibal, Armin Meiwes. In 2001, this seemingly ordinary man from a small town in Germany stunned the world with a crime so bizarre and horrifying that it raised countless questions about consent, psychology, and the boundaries of law. This case not only captivated the media but also sparked debates about the darker aspects of human nature and the limits of personal freedom. Join us as we explore the chilling details of this case, from the disturbing online post to the infamous meeting that ended in tragedy. Viewer discretion is advised, as we'll be discussing graphic and unsettling content. Armin Meiwes lived a relatively quiet life in the town of Rothenburg, Germany, where he appeared to neighbors as polite and helpful. A 42-year-old computer technician, Meiwes was known to be the kind of neighbor who would mow lawns, repair cars, and invite others for dinner. But behind this unassuming facade was a dark fantasy that had haunted Meiwes since childhood. Meiwes' behavior as a child is described as like most other children his age. He loved animals and found country life idyllic. But Meiwes describes the traumatic experience, at the age of 5, of watching his father abandoning his family, shortly followed by his 2 half-brothers, making him the man of the house. From a young age, Meiwes fantasized about consuming another person. He later told investigators that he had harbored these desires since he was 8 years old, often imagining the act of devouring classmates. As a lonely boy, he indulged in a fantasy world where he made up imaginary brothers. In his teenage years, these fantasy brothers became objects of his sexual desire, and his yearning for connection with them grew so strong that he wanted them to be part of him. Then I thought if they were to become a part of me, Meiwes said, I'd have to eat them. Meiwes' fixation became more intense following the death of his mother in 1999, who had reportedly been a strict and controlling figure in his life. Now living alone in a sprawling, creaky mansion, Meiwes began actively seeking ways to fulfill his fantasy. As an adult, Meiwes spent hours on message boards and chat rooms talking with 400 other people who either fantasized about eating others or being eaten. He started meeting up in hotel rooms with men from the sites. One asked Meiwes to write the names of cuts of meat on labels and then pin them to his body with needles. But disappointingly for Meiwes, none of the men he met with were actually willing to be eaten alive. In 2001, Meiwes turned to the internet to find someone willing to be his victim. Using the alias Frankie, he posted an advert online saying, "Searching for a well-built young man who would like to be eaten by me, significant full-body pictures desired." Several replies came, but one particular post caught the cannibal's eye. It was titled, "Dinner, or Your Dinner. I'm offering you the chance to eat me alive," it read. Finally, Meiwes had a willing participant. He received a response from a 43-year-old engineer from Berlin named Bernd Brands. Bernd Brands was, by outward appearances, a successful, financially stable professional. However, he had a complex personal life and psychological issues that led him to respond to Meiwes' ad. Brands had been in a relationship with a woman named Bettina, with whom he shared a close and intimate relationship. But the two had separated after Brands disclosed that he was also attracted to men. Prosecutors later suggested that Brands suffered from a severe psychiatric disorder and had a deep-seated desire for self-destruction, which may have driven him to answer Meiwes' ad. He was Meiwes' ideal victim, the documentary explains. He wanted to sacrifice himself, the killer says. On the 9th of March 2001, Brands arrived at Meiwes' farmhouse in Rothenburg. In an interview from prison, Meiwes describes the moment Brands stepped off the train. "I was nervous and excited," he says. The two men had agreed in advance on the details of their encounter, which was fully consensual and would be documented on video. The footage would later become key evidence in the trial, showing that Brands willingly participated in the events that followed. The two had sex at Meiwes' home, but he said Brands was not satisfied, adding he wanted to be eaten alive. Once inside the farmhouse, around 6:30 p.m. in the evening, Brands took sleeping pills for sedation and half a bottle of schnapps to numb the pain of what was to come. Then the pair went to a slaughter room Meiwes had prepared. In a disturbing scene, Meiwes then severed Brands' penis with his consent. The two of them tried to eat it, but it was too chewy. Bleeding profusely, Brands ran a bath and got into the warm water. Mayways waited downstairs for his guest to die, he passing the time by reading a Star Trek novel. But after 3 hours, Brands was still alive. Impatient, Mayways decided to kill him, stabbing the 43-year-old Brands in the throat. With the cameras still rolling, the cannibal set about butchering Brands' body. "I decorated the table with nice candles," he said. "I took out my best dinner service, and fried a piece of rump steak a piece from his back, made what I call princess potatoes, and sprouts. After I prepared my meal, I ate it. The first bite was, of course, very strange. It was a feeling I can't really describe. I'd spent over 40 years longing for it, dreaming about it. And now I was getting the feeling that I was actually achieving this perfect inner connection through his flesh. The flesh tastes like pork but stronger." Mayways proceeded to dismember Brands' body, carefully storing parts of it in his freezer alongside everyday items like a frozen pizza. Over the following weeks, Mayways would defrost and prepare portions of Brands' flesh, cooking it with olive oil and garlic. According to his later statements, Mayways consumed about 20 kilograms of Brands' body over the next few months. He described the experience as one that made him feel closer to his victim, claiming, "With every bite, my memory of him grew stronger."
Tastes like pork, but stronger, more substantial. Although I don't think that other people would have noticed a difference had they eaten it. It tasted really good.
Over a period of months, he consumed 20 kilos of the flesh.
But Mayways wasn't satisfied. In the next few months, he started hunting for his next victim online. An Austrian student saw one of the graphic posts and alerted the police. In December 2002, police raided Mayways' farmhouse, where they discovered the remains of Brands in the freezer and other incriminating evidence.
And there was a policewoman within the troop. And she asked Mayways, "So what kind of meat do you have in the fridge?" And I said, "No, this is just normal animal meat." And she looked at him and said, "You know, I'm a housewife. I know that this is not normal meat."
Mayways was promptly arrested. The case presented a unique challenge for German prosecutors. In Germany, there were no laws explicitly forbidding cannibalism, as it was an unprecedented situation. Consequently, Mayways was charged with murder motivated by sexual pleasure and disturbing the peace of the dead. The defense argued that Brands had consented to his own killing, making it a case of killing on demand, which carried a maximum sentence of 5 years. The trial, held in Kassel, Germany, became one of the most extraordinary in German history. The case not only explored the legal boundaries surrounding issues of consent but also delved into the psychological elements driving both men's actions. Mayways admitted to the court that consuming another human had been a lifelong fantasy. He explained that he had felt lonely and neglected as a child, particularly after his father abandoned the family. This loneliness and longing for connection fueled his cannibalistic fantasies, as he envisioned consuming a blonde younger brother he could keep forever. Central to the defense was the argument that Brands willingly participated in his own death, as seen in the explicit videotaped footage. The court had to determine whether this consent could serve as a legal justification for the killing. During the trial, the footage was reviewed by the court in private due to its graphic content, and testimony from psychological experts delved into Brands' mental state, suggesting he was suffering from a self-destructive disorder. Mayways reflect irons and psychological state. Mayways told the court that eating Brands brought him a sense of relief and stability. He described how he had meticulously prepared each meal, decorating his table with candles and choosing his best cutlery. He paired the meals with a bottle of South African red wine and later claimed that Brands' flesh tasted like pork. Behind bars, Mayways reportedly experienced a sense of satisfaction from the act and expressed that he felt his English had improved since consuming Brands, who had spoken English fluently. The case received widespread media attention, and Mayways gained notoriety as the Rothenburg cannibal. Public interest was further piqued by Mayways' announcement that he had begun writing his memoirs, hoping to share his side of the story and his motivations. In early 2004, Mayways was found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 8.5 years in prison. However, the verdict faced public and legal scrutiny, as many believed it did not adequately address the gravity of the crime. In 2006, a retrial was held, and Mayways was ultimately convicted of murder, receiving a life sentence. The court ruled that Brand's consent was not legally valid in the case of a life-ending act, and the decision set a precedent for future cases involving extreme forms of consensual harm. The case of Armin Mayways raised fundamental questions about the boundaries of consent and personal autonomy, challenging legal norms and sparking ethical debates. It also led to changes in German law to address the gaps in handling similar cases, ensuring that individuals cannot consent to acts resulting in their own death. The case has since inspired books, films, and academic discussions on the psychological and legal aspects of cannibalism, consent, and extreme human behavior. In summary, the Rothenburg cannibal case remains a powerful example of how human psychology, legal boundaries, and societal norms collide in unforeseen ways. The story continues to intrigue and disturb, raising questions that extend beyond the courtroom into deeper considerations of human nature and moral limits.